Hello everyone, this is Calvin Castine. I'm coming to you today from Northeastern Clinton Central School. We're in the superintendent's office. I used to spend a lot of time in the principal's office when I was in school, but today we're in the superintendent's office talking to Mr. Christopher de Grandpré, the superintendent of Northeastern Clinton. And our topic, as you might expect this time of the year, is the school budget. And it's a very timely topic. I'm not quite sure yet, depending on how long this is, what day of the week we're going to stick this on. Obviously it'll be before the budget vote. But in today's paper on this Thursday, the 8th of June, big news, the budget from Albany was passed. Any surprises in here for you, Chris, as far as your estimations on state aid and so on?
The article in the Press Republican, Calvin, does not reflect all of the aid that we anticipate for next year. So there really isn't a surprise when we look in the paper and see the amount of aid allocated for our school district, knowing that we will be receiving more aid than is shown in today's paper. Most of that aid is attributable to the building aid available for the reconstruction program.
Okay, I see a minus 35,000 or just almost 35,000. And I know your figures in going to the meetings and so on were based on
the governor's
things
proposal
staying the same.
Yes.
Have they stayed the same as far as
pretty much figures? The figures for operating aid are pretty much what was proposed in the governor's plan, and we reviewed all of those figures this morning, and the estimates of aid and estimates of revenue anticipated for next year are what we have shown in the proposed budget. So there aren't any surprises in that respect. So in other words, the tax rate estimates and so forth are pretty much along the lines of what are shown in the proposed school budget.
Okay, so at our informational meeting in Moores last week, you handed out this, and the booklet you have in your hand has been available in the community convenience stores and so on for quite some time now. Are there any figures in here that we should be looking at updating that may have changed because now you know what the budget is?
No, we took all of this into consideration in developing the proposed budget. So the figures that are in the detailed budget, which is available, in the summary budget, are very close to the actual numbers that we've received from Albany. And when I say actual numbers, they're only estimates too, because the aid is only generated during the summer months. After the books are closed on June 30th, all of the state aid reports are completed, and we submit the reports to Albany. That's when the aid is actually generated. These are estimates of aid available for next year. So we actually anticipate receiving more aid than is shown in the Press Republican today.
Yes, because even if you looked at the figure they gave for total aid last year, and you look at the figure in your booklet, the numbers aren't the same. There will be some.
One example shown in the computer printout that we received from Albany. They show us receiving approximately $300,000 for building aid. Well, we're anticipating an expenditure next year of approximately $900,000, and we're expecting approximately 90% aid on that. So we'll probably be receiving between $700,000 and $800,000 in aid. So there's a difference right there. And all of that has to be taken into consideration with our own spending plan for next year. So we're very comfortable with the numbers that we put in the proposed budget for the coming year.
I haven't had time to go through this budget the way I would like to have. When we get into it, we're going to be putting the figures on the wall. We have an A1 operator here to run the projector. Sheila Miller, she's gone to school for this, hasn't she? Projector,
oh yes,
overhead projector,
for overhead projector training. Yes,
she has a certificate. She's certified.
Absolutely.
And we'll be putting that up on the wall, so you won't have to be looking at Chris and I throughout this presentation. What we'll be covering will be mentioned up there. We're in the middle of a renovations project here that we've had good publicity on it at Hometown Cable. Will it mention the amount in the budget that is affected by that?
I'm not sure I understand.
Renovations project is costing the taxpayers this X number of dollars. Will that X be identified in the budget? that you're going to be showing up there? If it is, I won't need
Yes.
to get into it here.
Well, yes, we will be going through that when we do the overheads on the
Okay.
wall, and be glad to go into as much detail as you'd like on that, Calvin.
Okay. I think any questions I'm going to have are going to be based on what I see on the wall, so
Okay.
I don't know if you have anything else that you'd like to present at this time before we go into the projection.
No, I think we'll go to the projection on the wall, and then after we conclude the review of the budget and the improvements and so on, I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have relative to the resolutions and individuals who are running for a board seat and that sort of thing.
Okay, why don't we cover them, the next budget hearing, we'll give that date, the date of the vote, and the people who are running for the board, because there might be some people who are watching now who might not be with us at the end.
Okay, sure. Well, let's start by talking about when the next meeting is scheduled to review the budget. It's Tuesday, June 13th, 1995 at 7:30 p.m. in the senior high school auditorium. And at that time, we'll be prepared to review the budget. We'll be prepared to talk about the resolutions that will be presented to the voters, and certainly happy to answer any questions for those who are present at the meeting. And then the following day, there will be the vote on the budget and the resolutions, and vote on 3 seats for member to the Board of Education. That's June 14th from 12 until 9 p.m.
Flag Day.
Yes, and you can vote at 2 locations. On the east end of the district, it's at the junior high school cafeteria here in this building, and then on the west end of the district, it will be at the Morris Elementary School gymnasium. Again, it's from 12 to 9 p.m.
Okay. And quickly, does the booklet tell us who's running for office?
For member of the Board of Education?
Yep.
Be happy to review that. Donald S. Lapierre completed a 5-year term and is not running again for that seat. There are 2 individuals who have filed petitions to run for that board seat: Vicki Brassard and Bennett Grant. And then for the second seat, 5-year term, the present incumbent is Alan R. Miller, and he's running unopposed for that seat. Third seat that's up this year, a member of the Board of Education, unexpired term of 2 years. The present incumbent is Crystal Edgerton, and James Castine is running unopposed for that seat.
Okay. And
There are 2 resolutions. Maybe we could review those this time. The first, these can all be found in the budget brochure that is available in the community, and you alluded to that.
and there certainly are a pile of these out there.
Yes, there are several thousand of them. The first resolution has to do with the 3 libraries in the communities of the school district. It states, resolved that the Board of Education is authorized to levy a special tax not to exceed $9,000, that's $3,000 for each library, on the taxable property of the school district for the support of the Moores Free Library, the Champlain Free Library, and the Rouse's Point Dodge Memorial Library. And we will have an overhead to show the effect on the tax rate with approval of that resolution. It amounts to, on a $50,000 home, approximately $2 a year, $75,000 assessment, $3 a year.
Okay.
It's about 4 cents a thousand, Ellen.
Okay.
The second resolution would authorize an individual who moved into the district and wished to vote on the school budget and various resolutions that come before the voters of the district. It would allow them to register to vote any school day from 9 to 2, rather than to have to go to one of the special sitting times that are available throughout the year as a convenience to the voters. Should they approve this, an individual could come into the district office, see the clerk of the board or a member of the Board of Registration for personal registration, and register to vote any school day.
Okay, so they wouldn't have to be somebody who moved into the district, though. Anybody who just plain hasn't voted.
And hasn't voted in a long time, certainly.
Or somebody who just turned 18 or whatever.
Yes.
But I imagine you do a pretty good job right now of registering the 18-year-olds. What's the status here when a student turns 18? Are they registered here at school automatically? I mean, not automatically, but
they're reminded to that they can register. And of course, we're in a new process now, so they have to register just like everybody else. But they're reminded on a regular basis about their responsibility in this regard.
Okay, and if you're not registered right now with the district or with the county Board of Elections, you're not eligible to vote.
You're not eligible to vote this year, that's right.
Right.
We've had two dates upon which you could come in and register, and both of those dates have passed at this point.
So you can't walk in here on the 14th and say, I want to register
That's right.
and vote.
Right, and that's a new change this year, as we've previously discussed. We think it'll work out very well long-term for district residents. And this was done on advice of the school attorney. We now have gone to absentee ballots. We have more than one place where you can vote in the district, and in order to keep everything as technically correct as possible, it was recommended that we go to personal registration.
Now, if this resolution number 2 passes, then a person will be able to, in the future, come in here, assuming it's a school day, register, then vote.
Yes, any school day.
Yeah. So if it's not a school day, sometimes we have budget votes in July, and they wouldn't be able to register and vote.
I think they'll be able to register. Obviously, there are some regulations in this regard, but they'll be able to register and then vote at the next regular or special meeting where voting occurs.
Okay. And to be eligible to register, you know what the requirements are offhand?
You have to be a U.S. citizen, you have to be 18 years of age, and have to be a resident or older, thank you, and a resident of the district 30 days.
Okay. You ready for the slideshow?
Well, sure.
Okay, Chris, we have the first sheet of the large booklet that was handed out the night of the first public hearing at Moore's, and there probably aren't a lot of these out in circulation because there weren't too many people that showed up at that hearing.
They are available, Calvin, to anybody who would care to have a detailed budget.
So they are a little different than the small booklet that is available at the convenience stores?
Yes. Different in the sense that there's much more detail provided in the larger brochure that you have before you right now, cover of which is on the screen.
Right.
So
Okay.
you want me to highlight a few points about
Sure.
the cover here. What you're seeing displayed on the wall at this time would be the total general fund appropriations included for the 95-6 year. This is the proposed budget for the 95-6 year, summarized in 5 general areas. The first is general support, and actually that is down a little bit over 1994-95. There's a little decrease there.
What is general support?
General support includes the areas of Board of Education, District Clerk, District Meeting, Chief School Administrator, Business Administration, Auditing, the District Treasurer's Office, Tax Collector's Office and Functions, Purchasing, Fiscal Agent Fees, Legals area, Personnel, Records Management Function, Public Information, Operation of Plant, Maintenance of Plant, Central Storeroom, Central Printing and Mailing, and special contractual expenses, which include insurance and refund on real property taxes, and the administrative charge to BOCES. That's all under general support.
Okay.
That area is down just a little bit over the current year. Now under instruction, maybe what I'll do is just cover the general areas there, and then I'll talk about the increase and so forth.
Well, these will be covered in the booklet, so I think we can wait.
Okay, that'll be fine.
And I'm not sure how well they can read these figures at home. Hopefully they'll be able to see them a
Okay.
little bit, but so you might want to mention what the figures are.
Sure, I'd be happy to. For 94.5, the current figure under instruction is $7,917,492. The proposed for 1995-6 is $8,334,566. That's a 5.3% increase over the current year. Would this be a good time, Calvin, for us to go into detail, or shall we just do that as we go through the budget? Want to just do that as we get to
I think
the various
as we
pages?
get into
Yeah.
the different items.
Okay. Pupil transportation is increased from $803,058 for 94.5 to $887,188. That's a 10.4% increase over the current year, and we'll explain the reasons for that. That has to do with the purchase of school buses. Community services is a 4% increase over the current year, from $3,211 to $3,350. Undistributed for 94.5 is $3,250,163. It increases about 9.6% to $3,564,546. And within that area of the budget, we'll talk about retirement, we'll talk about debt service, Social Security, medical insurance, and so on. So, the total general fund appropriation for the current year, 94.5, is $13,451,544. The proposed for 95.6 is $14,224,030, approximately 5.7% increase over the current year.
Okay, before we turn the page, you say undistributed includes a lot of the benefit package?
And the debt service, yes.
Okay.
The retirement program, the health insurance program, Social Security, and
Why?
so on.
I assume that you don't make up these categories, that these are lines that the state gives you and you put on
Yes.
this and this and such and such a
That's
line.
correct.
Why would something like health insurance not be included in instruction since it is part of the compensation?
This format, the detailed budget that we were talking about a few minutes ago, it emulates what is called the School Business Management Form Number 1. This is a form that comes to us from the State Education Department, and it's tied in with the Uniform System of Accounts for the state of New York. So that this is the way the state has organized this budget format in order that it can calculate, I suppose, the cost of certain items, not only for schools, but for municipalities, towns, and other entities within state government. It's a way of breaking it out of the instructional costs so that you can see actually what it costs for example, Social Security, what the actual cost to the school district is for Social Security.
Okay, and this is the only, they don't give you a choice of different formats to
No.
use? This is
This is the format that you use.
Okay.
We could put a what we call a popular budget together and put it in any format that we wished, but it makes sense to work from the state suggested format because we have to report all of this information right after the budget vote to the state of New York.
You'd have to do all your paperwork twice.
Yes, but when we have the presentations and so forth, we try to do it in such a way that it's very clear to those who come to the meetings, and in this case, those who are in the television audience, to make sure that they understand what it is, either the appropriation is or the expenditure means. Okay, so that's really a summary of the budget, and perhaps we'll move on.
We'll be going, there's probably, I think, 16 pages or so of this, and we won't be going over, for the viewers at home, we won't be going over every item, every dollar, because it could be here forever.
What we're going to do is we're going to work from the summary budget that has been provided to the community, and then we will provide information from the detailed budget into those areas to make sure that we've answered everybody's questions. And any question you have, I'd be delighted to answer it for you. I think it's the easiest way to handle it. So let's go let's start by talking about the improvements that are in the budget, and then we'll hit the budget itself.
Okay.
All right. This is a summary of the improvements that are included in the proposed budget for 95-6. Almost halfway down the page, you'll see additional courses offered in science, social studies, Spanish, English, mathematics, health, art, and funding for the part-time swim program. In summary, what we are reflecting here is the need to add additional classes, maybe one extra class in Spanish or 2 extra classes in mathematics, and this is a reflection of increased enrollment in the secondary schools. We mentioned at the review the other night that we'll graduate in the neighborhood of 90 students, Calvin, and we're expecting in the neighborhood of 125 to 130 students coming into the 9th grade class this fall. We are growing, and we are at a point where we needed to add some additional classes to make sure that the class sizes remain reasonable.
Well, last year and this year's classes are 2 of the smaller ones that we've had. Right?
Yes, they are. And kindergarten class, for example, coming in is over 130. And we noted in the popular budget, as we call it, an increase in enrollment from 1990 to the present of about 190 students. That's on the first page, inside cover.
Mm-hmm. Yes, for those of you viewing at home, if you have that little booklet that's been available in the stores, that's what we're looking at right now. The page you're looking at on your screen is just about 6-7 pages in there. So
Inside the front cover.
Right. The one on the screen that they're looking at right now is about 6-7 pages, and the enrollment figures are on the inside front cover, so they can follow along at home at this point.
Yes. All right. And then we are continuing the funding for the course offerings and computer applications. One of the important parts of our educational program now has to do with what's called the Compact for Learning. And the idea behind the Compact is to take the concepts learned in the classroom and to apply them in a practical manner. For example, when we put together the district newsletter, the students are helping to do a great part of that work now. In other words, they're learning the concepts using the computer, learning how to write, and so on, and they now are applying that knowledge in a practical manner. They collect stories, they edit stories, they type them or keyboard them, use their keyboarding skills to put them on the computer. They learn to use the computer programs and produce a product. And that's what a program like this is all about, computer applications.
Well, it makes the education more realistic to them.
Yes, it does.
I imagine it's
Yes,
not
it
just
does.
something that's not tangible. It's
Yep.
if they actually do something with it, then they can understand it.
Right? And the idea behind it is when they leave our school, they have skills that they can apply immediately as an entry-level work, or when they go off to college, they have skills that they can use and are proficient, for example, in the use of the computer. Now, we have continued funding for the Model United Nations program, which is a major program here at school, as you know, serves many, many students. The outdoor education program, we're underway with that as we sit here today. Students in the 6th grades are at Lake Claire, and then next week we'll have more students from the Moores area at Lake Claire. Right now it's Champlain and Rouse's Point. Then we continue to purchase a few computers for instruction each year. This is an area where we'd like to do a lot more, Calvin, but the cost of implementing this program is very expensive. So we do what we can on an annual basis to try to continue to have computers available that are up to the, I won't say state of the art, but where the software and the hardware is current with what you'd find in business, so that the skills they get here are transferable into the workplace or to advanced education.
Well, the way the world of computers is changing, you're almost better to do it this way, because if you went out with a big expenditure and bought these
right.
in mass quantities, 5
Yes.
years from now they could be obsolete.
This
so.
is a major concern, and this is what we're seeing happen. Yes. Yeah. Then continued funding for the field trips for students. That's a limited program. I'm sure everybody's aware of that. Most classes get one trip sponsored by the school a year, and that is what this program is about. We think it's a very important component of their education. And these are trips to, for example, Shelburne or Conservation Day, Minor Farm, and other educational settings. We also are able to provide some field trips through the extra classroom account over the course of the school year. We have also continued to put some money in the budget for uniform replacement, and we know it's not enough money to do the job the way it should be done, but the budget is so tight this year that we were able to put, as I say, an allocation in for some uniform replacement and other items that are needed by the athletic department. I guess I'd say thank you to the Booster Club as long as we're sitting here for the tremendous help that they have provided to us in this area.
I was definitely running through my mind too, because I was at their annual banquet last night where they honored the seniors who had participated in the sports throughout their junior high and high school careers, and they mentioned the amount of money that they had put into jackets and uniforms within the past school year, and it's just amazing that such a small group can do so much.
Yes, they've done a great job, and we are very, very appreciative of all of their efforts. Then, in tune with the increased enrollment at the elementary and secondary level, we need an additional bus run in the Moores area. We are overloaded with some bus runs, and are looking ahead to next year. We'll need to revise some routes and add an additional bus run up in that area to be sure that we're not overloaded in any of the bus runs. This has to do with growing enrollment. Seem to be growing quite a bit at the Moores end of the district.
There's a heck of a lot of nice new homes going up in the Moores area. Every time you go on a back road, you find another new one.
Yes. And then finally, we point out the continued implementation of the reconstruction program. This is a major program. It's $11.6 million, and we're already seeing some of the fruit of our labor, and we're most appreciative to the community for supporting the proposition to allow us to do this work, because this work was this work that needed to be done, and will hold the district in good stead for a long, long time. Plus, we'll save some money with that boiler replacement program at the high school level and so forth. That's going to save us some money down the road. And we'll see the evidence of that in a few minutes when we look through the budget. Okay. So maybe we'll move on to the. I think we're going to the summary of the budget at this point. All right, we're working off of the.
Again, this is the small booklet that's been available in the stores.
And what we're going to be doing is comparing the budget prepared for 1994-5, the current year, and we'll be looking at the proposed budget for 95-6. Under Board of Education, the current year, the allocation is $7,050. The allocation proposed for next year is $5,550. It's down a little bit over the current year. I'll just say as a general rule, Calvin, that every area of this budget has been looked at in light of the fact that there's no increase in state aid for operating purposes. Any time you have a situation like that, you're really looking at a cut because of inflation. So you'll notice a lot of areas where actually it's down a little bit over the current year, and we looked at our appropriation, what we budgeted for this year and what we spent, and if there was an area where we felt we had a little extra money that had been put in there that was not needed, or as we look ahead, wouldn't need quite as much for next year, we cut it back, because anytime we're able to do that, it helps to keep the tax rate down. So I think you'll see that reflected throughout this budget. Under the district clerk, $4,120 for the current year, $3,830 for the proposed. District meeting, $3,450 for 94.5, $3,000 for 95.6.
Let's just go over the big changes. I think
Okay.
we could
Spend an awful lot of time.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
All right.
operation and maintenance obviously is a big one. That's
All
a
right.
big drop from 984,000 to 920.
Can we move down there, Sheila? Thank you. Yes, as we just visited about, with the installation of the new heating system in the senior high school, we will be converting from electricity to fuel oil. We anticipate when this program is fully implemented, we hope to save $100,000 a year. Now, in operation and maintenance, we're talking here about electricity, fuel oil, and other maintenance items related to the heating system, okay? That electric heating system on top of the roof is very, very expensive to maintain. It's over 20 years old, parts are hard to get for the units and so on. The bottom line is here, for 94.5, we had budgeted $984,567, and the allocation for next year is $920,713. We know we're going to save a lot of money in the conversion from electricity to fuel oil.
Do you know what our actual expenditure was? We must have been under budget, because 2 winters ago was our 38 below 1 degrees winter days there, where we had some really nasty days.
Mm-hmm.
So,
What, I'm not sure I understand the question.
well, we budgeted 984,000.
Now that's for all operations under buildings and maintenance and so on. That's just not fuel oil.
Okay, yeah.
Okay?
Mhm.
So the question is?
I would say most of the savings probably comes from
Oh,
fuel
oil
savings.
from the lower cost of operating with fuel oil versus electricity. Our annual bill for electricity could be as much as $300,000 a year. We expect to perhaps spend $100,000 for fuel oil, but we don't want to overestimate our savings, because it'll take 2 or 3 years to see. But you can see that we're starting to show savings as we implement. Last year we were online with about 20-25% of the program. The boilers were in, and we ran a few units through the last heating season. This summer they'll complete the program, putting those heating and cooling units that you see behind the building.
Mhm.
They'll be installed, and we expect to be fully online for the next heating season. So we're really looking forward to some savings this coming year.
Okay, are those savings are projected in that budget then?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, but we must have, just with the fact that our winter was so mild this year compared to last year, which was so severe,
Mm-hmm.
there must have been some kind of savings right there that above and
This year?
beyond
Yes.
the normal
Oh, yes.
savings that we would have
Oh, yes.
because of the
And
conversion.
True with plowing and overtime for plowing and all of that sort of thing. So there were savings throughout the budget this year. Electricity as well, because it was a mild winter. Mm-hmm. We've taken that into consideration, though. We have to plan for the worst and hope for the best when it comes to utilities, electricity, and fuel oil. So we would plan a margin in there to ensure that we would have enough funds for to buy fuel oil or buy electricity, whatever it happens to be. We have to do that. Plus the rates increase from time to time, and we have to take that into consideration when we build a budget.
The savings, where will the person find those as far as the revenue side of all this? Are they all in the,
On the revenue side,
well,
There wouldn't
a
be-
dollar saved is a dollar earned, or a penny saved is a penny earned, so to operate next year, the money we didn't spend this year is a fund balance.
oh, yes, sure.
Are they all lumped under a fund balance?
Yes.
In one spot?
Yes, back under the general fund revenues, which we're going to touch on in a few minutes, I can show you the estimated fund balance for June 30, 95, and how that relates
So
to...
we'll be getting to that shortly.
Yes, we will.
Okay, so we won't
Sure.
jump ahead.
Yeah, okay. All right, so I think the next area that has increased would be special items down just a little further, where, there you are,
Mhm.
$148,851 for the current year, up to $164,333, $495,600. And what we're talking about there is an increase in the cost of liability insurance. And let me just see if there's anything else. Okay, administrative charges, BOCES also went up. But before I get to that, The insurance increased from $57,689 to $62,082. So there was a $5,000 increase there. And then the cost for BOCES administration increased from $77,062 to $88,678. And there were several reasons for that. Some of this has to do with the number of schools that participate in certain BOCES programs. I know that they had to take over part of a computer system, and there was an additional cost there. So that area of the budget did go up a little bit.
So although Northeastern voted no on that,
It passed.
it still passed?
Yes, and the rule would be if it didn't pass on a BOCES-wide level, that they remain at the current levels. So our bill would have been $77,062 had that prevailed BOCES-wide.
Now, I assume on a BOCES vote, it's each district has one vote.
Mhm.
So
Yes,
a school the size of PHS has the same vote as a school the size of Keene,
yes, that's true. Yes.
which isn't quite your one man, one vote, is it?
It's the way it's been organized at the state level.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so shall we move down into instruction?
Okay.
Probably the area that would show the most significant change is area of supervision, regular school, and teaching, regular school, which is 2 lines below. Under supervision, somewhere in the neighborhood of 4% increase for administrators and supervisors. And then down just a little bit below where it shows $5,086,177 for 94.5, it says teaching regular school. The increase is from to $5,552,929, and that's about a 5% increase, and that has to do with increases for staff, normal
going
increases
from,
for staff.
That's closer to 10%, isn't it?
Excuse me.
You're going from 5 million to 5.5 million.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the whole area of instruction, and you're right. That area is up about 10%. Excuse me. The whole area of instruction is up, as we talked about in the summary, 5.3. But that particular item is up about 10%, and what that amounts to is 4.8% increase in salary the last year of the agreement. Then the equivalent of 2 additional positions at the secondary level, plus 3/5 position for reopening the pool, plus the additional position at the elementary level, all related to enrollment. So the equivalent of 3 additional teaching positions, plus the normal increases for salary.
Okay.
Then moving down to programs for children with handicapping conditions, we should show the decrease that we have there, $1,694,784 for 94.5, down a little bit to $1,612,781. And the reason for that is, Calvin, that some students who are attending the BOCES special ed program are returning to classes here at Northeastern, so that would have a bearing on those numbers. Plus, we have fewer students enrolled in the special education program anticipated for next year. So that's the reason for that. Having said that, at any time, students can come from other school districts into our school system. In other words, people move, and from time to time we have students would move in, and we would have the high cost of serving any special ed student that required a particular service and so on. We've anticipated that as best we can for next year.
A rough idea of how many students involved in that?
In special education?
Yeah.
In the entire program, we have about 230 students, K through 12, and we would serve approximately 20 to 23 students at the William A. Fritz special ed program in Plattsburgh.
Okay.
Now, these students would have a variety of disabilities, handicapping conditions. Some have a mild disability, learning disabled, and some require very specialized services, as you know.
So you run the gamut.
It runs the gamut. All right. Looking down a little further, I don't see any major changes. I'd be glad to answer any questions about any of those areas that you'd like
I
me to.
don't see anything that sends up a flag that,
No?
okay.
Okay. Should we look at the next page, Sheila? Okay, district transportation is an area that requires some explanation. 4% increase for salaries, and this would be the next to the last year of the agreement with the Civil Service Employees Association, but the area that has increased would be bus purchases. And we have had in the budget a sum of money allowing us to purchase 2 school buses without having to finance those buses. We've increased that to 3 for next year. And our goal would be to try to include over the course of time a sum of money large enough to purchase the buses on an annual basis without having to finance them. And actually, the cost to finance a bus per year, we've equated it to about $400 being the local share, more than if we finance them than if we pay cash for them. But the cost of the state is a lot higher. In any event, we still can save some money by paying cash for them versus a financing program, which sometimes is necessary depending on how much money is available to operate the district for the school year.
Okay, so we're looking at about a $79,000 increase under transportation.
Yes.
4% of that is
Salaries for the
salaries
bus
for the
drivers and mechanics and so on.
And the other 50, what's the bus cost?
55 or $60,000. So
Out of that 79.
yes, that's what it is.
Because we're going from purchasing 2 buses a year to 3 buses.
Yes, yes.
Are we looking at purchasing 3 every year? Or?
Well, we really need to purchase at least 3 a year in order to turn the fleet over in a period of 10 years. And of course, the state would like us to be replacing our buses on a program, at least turning them over every 10 years. And we'd like to do it maybe a little sooner than that. There is a point of diminishing returns on maintenance of school buses, and the state aid is over 80% on the purchase of a school bus. So when you start getting into a bus that has 100, 150,000 miles, and you start getting rust, and you begin to have problems with transmissions and engines and so forth, you have to take a good hard look at the cost of doing that maintenance work or replacing the school bus, because with the aid, it's a very, very sound investment to replace the buses before you run into the major mechanical problems and the cost therein.
Okay.
All right. Maybe we'll walk down to undistributed now. This is an area we talked about earlier, Calvin, that
Yep.
we had some questions about. Employee benefits. Let me outline those for you. Under employee benefits, we have several areas. State retirement. That's for the non-instructional employees. This would be teacher aides, bus drivers, clerical employees, and so on. The current year, the budgeted amount was $57,684. Now, that's an area where we underestimated this year, Calvin, and underestimated maybe by $30,000. And so when you take that into consideration, plus the normal increase, which is based on increases in salaries and that sort of thing, we had to budget a little differently for 95.6. We've estimated $101,000 for next year.
Okay, so you're saying that
That one's up more than normally it would be up,
because it should have been
we
last year.
underestimated the
So the
cost to
actual
us.
expense, so maybe some of the money that we saved in fuel had to be transferred over here, that type of thing?
Yeah, that happens. It happens in the family, and it happens in the school business too. And I'll tell you, one of the complicating factors is they send us supplemental bills from time to time, and sometimes this will affect the cost of your retirement by, it could be $10,000 or $12,000. But as I described a minute ago, we actually underestimated the cost of the program for 94.5.
By a bunch.
Yep, we did. Yeah. Yeah. Now, under teacher retirement, the cost estimated for 94.5 was $590,186, and the estimated cost for next year is $628,938. So that hasn't gone up too much, and that's based again on salaries. This also, what happens is, depending on how successful they are at with the retirement boards, investing the funds and so on, the rate that they charge us will increase or decrease accordingly. So if they have a good year and their investments have worked out well for them, then the rate might stay the same or it might actually go down. We've seen that happen. And interestingly enough, about 10 or 12 years ago, the rate for teacher retirement was as high as 22% a year. But now it's in the neighborhood of 7%. So a lot of work has been done to cap all of those costs. Got to give a lot of credit to the retirement board at the state level for working so hard on that. Social Security, of course, we all know that's based strictly on salary. In the current year, it's $580,081. Estimated for next year, $621,619. Workers' compensation, we budgeted $98,000 for 94.5, and we budgeted $107,997. Just this morning, we got the first bill for workers' comp for next year for the premium, and it's about $94,000. Now there'll be audits and adjustments later in the summer and the fall, so we'll probably get a supplemental bill, and we'll be up around $100,000 sometime by fall. But so we'll have enough money to take care of that. And unemployment insurance would be the next area that changes significantly. We'll talk about, probably this is a good time to talk about it. Current year, $8,000. Estimated for next year, $13,000. We have spoken in the newspaper and referred to this at the budget hearing on June 1st that we will have a reduction in force as we go into September of 95. We'll have one fewer reading specialist. That's a federal program, but the federal dollars are shrinking, and so we'll be downsizing by one position in reading. We'll also be downsizing by one position in special education. We'll be reducing by one teacher assistant position. We will have the equivalent of about 2.5 teacher aide positions fewer as we go into September. And so there is an impact on unemployment if those folks are not reassigned to other areas and don't have employment by September.
Okay, so this is an estimate. Your 13,000 is based on an estimate of
It's our estimate of what
could happen.
What could happen. We're hoping it won't come to that with retirements and that sort of thing, but we have to be prepared for that because that's an obligation of the district.
Okay.
Okay, and hospital and medical insurance. For 94.5, $1,120,416. The increase proposed for next year is $1,161,832. It's the lowest increase in premium rates that we've seen in many years. I mentioned, I believe, at the hearing on June 1st that we are part of a consortium of 17 school districts, and they have done a great job at capping the cost of the health insurance. You probably remember a few years ago where we were looking at insurance premium increases of 12% and 15%, but they've done a terrific job at controlling that. There have been some changes in the health insurance program, and it's in the neighborhood of 2 and 3%.
Are these figures estimates for the coming year? Because rates change unexpectedly.
It's taken into it's
Are we locked into this rate, this amount, or?
Well, we know the rates for next year, for the full school year,
Okay.
and so the figures shown are a reflection of that rate increase.
Okay.
So we've taken it into consideration. There shouldn't be any big surprises there.
Okay.
We're pleased with that small increase in the health insurance program. Now, looking down a little further, debt service. What you're seeing on the screen is debt service principal. The current year was $340,000. That was the first payment, principal payment, on the $6.5 million. That's the first half of the borrowing on the reconstruction program.
Right.
And so the payment, principal payment for 95.6, as you see on the right, is $340,000. Okay.
Right.
So that'll be a 15-year amortization. Okay.
And it'll be the same amount every year?
No, it will increase down the road 3 or 4 years from now, and then it'll, toward the end of the project, it may start to decrease again. And if funding is available after the 10th year, if we wanted to pay it off more quickly, we could do that, if we had the resources to do that. So that we've set it up in order that we might have that potential down the road. Then on the next line, you see the interest. The current year it was $449,782. Now for next year, the interest is a little less than the $449,000, but we also have in there a interest to cover a bond anticipation note for the remaining borrowing. It's short-term borrowing for the difference between the $6.5 million and $11.6 million. It would be a short-term borrowing because we're going to do the major part of our work this summer. And obviously we'll have the bills associated with that. We have to pay for all of this. So the interest is shown, it amounts to $250,000 to cover the short-term borrowing necessary to have the rest of the funds available so that we can pay the contractors and so on. Now, question comes up, is that aidable? Yes, it's aidable. So we submit that, whether it's principal or principal and interest, to the state and are reimbursed at the up to 95%. Now we're
Based on the amount, based on the reconstruction project?
Yes.
Not your normal state aid, right?
Yes, this is additional aid. Yeah.
So the 250,000,
Isn't that,
something that we
that's an
shouldn't-
estimate.
yeah, but we shouldn't see that next year?
No, what you'll see next year, very likely, if everything moves along, would be a second principal and interest payment on the second borrowing, once permanent financing is in place. So
Okay.
then we will have financed $11.6 million approximately, which was the authorization for the
Right.
voters, and we'll be into the financing plan, just like a home mortgage, of amortization to pay that off. And then what happens is we submit the principal and interest payments to the state, and once everything gets fully into the system at state ed, then we will get our 90+% aid back on those expenditures, the principal and interest.
Okay.
So if it was $1 million, we should expect $900,000 back from the state, approximately.
The following year?
Yeah. No, the same year.
The same year?
The same year. That's the only program where you get the aid back in the same year. Yeah. But that's an important point because
Yes.
it gets back to you more quickly.
Yes.
All righty. So on the undistributed part of the budget, that's up 9.6%, and the major reason for that has to do with the reconstruction program.
If you took the $250,000 that you got for that borrowing,
Mhm.
it wouldn't be much of an increase, about 14,000.
Wouldn't be too large an increase, and on the revenue side, we're planning some state aid to come in to offset that. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then perhaps we should look at the school tax information next. Maybe that'd be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
All right, these are estimates at this time, and we always caution everybody to keep in mind that if their individual assessment changes, increases, for example, if they put an addition on their house and they have an increase, they have to look at their own situation to get the best possible picture. But so these are estimates at this time, and basically in Altona the increase is 5.8%. Champlain is 6.9%. Chazy an increase of 6.9%, and Moores 5.6%. And people often wonder what goes into determining what the tax levy is. Well, there are many factors, but included among them are, I'll just give you an example. In the town of Champlain, Calvin, if you look at this form that I have here, it shows that the assessments are up almost $3 million in that town. Okay, so that's entered into the equation for how much participation each town has in paying for the school tax levy. And in the town of Moores, it's up about $1.4 million. For the whole district, the assessments increased $4,537,407 over the current year. Those are the estimates for tax purposes for 95.6.
Okay.
So you have that, and then you have the equalization rates, which are established by the state. Another variable would be how much a person's individual assessment went up. That would impact how much they actually paid. Other factors are how much state aid the school gets, what's left at the end of the year in the way of the fund balance that can be returned to reduce the increase in taxes the coming year. That's an important variable. Sometimes it's a larger or smaller amount depending on the circumstances that the district finds itself in, the expenses the district's had. But the rule is you must return everything but 2% to reduce the increase in taxes. And by and large, the school districts pretty much have to use any fund balance they have left to reduce the increases in the coming year. And the other thing is that fund balance after June 30th, whatever is left. Now here we're showing, we're going to touch on it a little bit more directly in a minute or two, but we're estimating $400,000 for next year. We operate using the fund balance from June 30th until September, until the taxes start to come into the school district. New levies adopted, and we have some income, let's say around the 15th of September. The warrant is approved on or about the 1st of September, and then tax bills go out first week or so in September, and then the district starts to generate some income. And so that whatever's left, the fund balance has to be used to operate during the summer when we have to purchase textbooks, do our summer maintenance program, and that sort of thing.
So the fiscal year starts before tax money is received.
Oh yes, it starts July 1. That's a very important point. The school year runs from July 1 to June 30th of each year.
Okay. So the increase is roughly 6%, 5.8 for the people in the Altona area of our northeastern district. 6.9, close to 7% for Champlain and Chazy residents in our northeastern district, and 5.6 for Moores. And part of that reason for the fluctuation is the equalization rate, which nobody in the world seems to understand.
Well, the purpose behind it, yes, that's true. It seems to be something that's difficult for people to understand. But the theory behind it is to ensure that that people pay an equitable amount, their fair share, if you will. They participate in an equitable way in the school levy. Now, when you're in 4 towns, you have different assessors assessing the property, and what happens at the State Board of Equalization Assessment is they will look back a couple of years and look at various properties and what they sold for, and what they try to do is make sure there's equity so that people are paying about what they should be. And as I've looked at it over the years, they've done a pretty good job of having a really good handle on that. Now, sometimes there are other factors too, like in a given year you might have a tremendous increase in assessments in one town, or very little activity and very few increases in assessments. All that has to be calculated into the formula, if you will.
Well, each town's portion of the tax bill is based upon their assessment, right?
Yes.
So their overall town assessment.
Yes, how much they participate in the, and how much of that town is in the school district. A town could have, be in several school districts.
Yes.
All right, so why don't we move to the revenues? Okay. Now, this is a summary of the income that the district would receive over the course of a year. And perhaps what we will do is walk through the various areas and just highlight the important points. Real property tax items. Everybody's heard the term payment in lieu of taxes now, and we all realize that in our community we have the tax abatement program for new industries coming into the community. Having said that, we are now starting to see some revenue come into the school district as these industries begin to, they're up and running and they're beginning to, I wanted to say pay taxes, but right now for many of them it's a payment in lieu of taxes until such time as they go onto the tax rolls 100%. For a period of time, they might not, for a couple of years, they might not pay any tax or a very small tax, and then as time passes, it goes to 25%, 50%, 75%, and 100%. So some of these businesses and industries have been with us for some time now, and we're starting to realize some income.
Any idea why that hasn't increased, and in fact has decreased by a little bit?
Just a little bit. Well, there are a couple of local industries that are no longer in operation, and so were they to have continued in operation, that number would be a little higher.
They're no longer in operation. I can name a name like Ocoton. Would that be an example?
That could be an example. I don't know the specific circumstances of any of those companies that are not in operation, because we don't handle that directly. That's handled through the county. But that could be an example. National Commercial might be an example. The refiners. I don't know their individual circumstances. Sheila, those are two that probably haven't participated in the last year or so. Yeah. So that
what happens to the taxability of that property?
Well, I know that's an issue that's being discussed by the people at the county level that handle that. And
it just seems strange that it would be going down.
Well, that's the reason, because they're no longer in business.
But they still, if I go out of business, I still have to pay a tax.
Yeah. I know that I'm not sure that this is true today, but I know prospectively that I believe it's my understanding that what will be written into the agreements is that if they do go out of business, they would be subject to the tax anyway,
Yes. So could part of this be that some of these have moved from payment in lieu of taxes over to the tax rolls? So they're no longer under this category?
Not in this category. No. This is strictly a payment in lieu of taxes area.
But they could have been in there last year, and then the time elapsed, so now they're no longer in the payment in lieu of taxes?
No.
There's none?
Not to my knowledge.
We have none of those that have been there long enough to be moving out of that category?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay.
Yep.
It seems strange it would be going down in that instead of going up.
One thing that we have to do is be very careful when we project revenues. We don't want to project revenues that aren't going to be there. You know what I'm saying?
Because they're going to be there.
The bills will be there, but the revenues have to be there to support our program, so we're very careful about that. And if anything, we prefer to be conservative because we certainly don't want to overestimate our revenues, and it can very easily be done. Charges for services. Bottom line there would be the income we get from non-resident students, Vermont students, adult education, the summer school tuition. Now that the pool will be back in operation, we'll probably generate a little revenue for evening swim program, admissions from the interscholastic athletic program, when we provide health services for the local parochial schools as required by law.
Okay, admissions from games.
Yes.
I brought up last fall the thought that we would encourage our students to support our local teams more, and we'd give these kids some encouragement to come to these events and not be roaming the streets or whatever. We didn't charge our own children to attend ball games, and it was supposed to be discussed at budget time.
Mhm.
Was any thought given to this?
Yes, I don't think we've come to any resolution of that. There are differing points of view on that. That's been studied primarily in-house to determine what the implication of that would be. And we generate about $5,000 a year in that program. Okay, and so one of the things that we are doing is we're talking with the other schools to see what implication this would have for other schools as well, were we to do it. There are many, many things to consider there, but it's under consideration.
How would us doing that affect another school?
Well,
if
if
we're
we-
still
if we
going to
don't-
charge their student, they're going to still charge our student.
If we don't charge our own students, and they go down to another place and are charged $2 or $3, there's an implication, and we'd like to consult with other schools about such issues. That's just one area. Probably the most important point would be the loss of income to the school district when we have high taxes and lots of expenses and so forth. $5,000 helps to defray the cost of officials and the other expenses associated with the interscholastic athletic program. So it's has to be looked at.
Well, you're saying 5,000. That 5,000 isn't all.
It's not all students. No.
No.
I think we estimated probably $1,500 to $2,000.
Well, I think for school spirit and making the kids feel they're more part of the school, that $1,500 would be well spent. We just had an incident where we just had over the weekend some vandalism and stuff, and who knows if the people involved in that might not have done it if they were going to a ball game on a regular basis or whatever.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's, we're supposing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Use of money and property. With money being less available as we look to next year, including a smaller fund balance, we have reduced the proposed revenue for next year from $22,625 to $20,650. And that really has to do with the fact that we would not have as much money to put on deposit in I'll say a savings account, a now account, and so we won't generate as much interest. We won't earn as much interest next year. So that's our best estimate of approximately how much we would earn next year, keeping that in mind in the rental of equipment and so on. Sale of property and compensation for loss. Well, when we no longer continue to operate a school bus or we have surplus equipment, you'll note that we often will advertise a sale of a school bus, or we'll have what I'll call a garage sale or an auction like we did last summer. And we earn some revenues there, and there have to be a place where that goes into the budget. And we probably will have another auction and garage sale as we continue with the reconstruction program, and we thought our income would be up a little bit over the current year. Miscellaneous, refund of prior year expenditures, gifts and donations, that's the category. And basically, in looking at the last couple of years and the amount of dividends we get back from having good experience ratings on insurance and that sort of thing, we felt that we could increase that area by about $12,000. Interfund revenues. Basically, this is a sum of money we receive from the federal government for operating the $300,000 or $400,000 worth of federal programs here at school, the Title I program, the Chapter 2 program, and Title VI, and so on, milk program, that kind of thing. State sources. This is where the largest source of revenue comes from for the district, and this is a sum of money that includes the basic state aid for operating the school. It includes textbook aid for software, computer hardware, library purchase program, building and reconstruction aid. We're anticipating an increase from $7,928,487 to $8,531,295. The biggest part of the increase, of course, as reflected in the paper today in our earlier discussion, has to do with increased building aid to be received into the district.
That's based on our reconstruction project.
Yes, yes.
Which is, since the reconstruction project has already been voted on, why is it included in the school budget every year? If this is going to make a $600,000 difference here, if that's what the figure is or whatever, haven't we already made that decision? Why is it included again to, I think, as far as from coming from your angle, you're trying to get this budget passed.
Yes.
It would look like you're asking people to vote on something they've already voted on.
Well, but they will be paying the local share of that tax on an annualized basis. Let's say that the principal payment for the coming year was $340,000. Okay, we'll just use that number. Well, we're going to get 90% of that back from the state, but there's a local share, so that's a tax on the local taxpayer. Therefore, it needs to be in the budget because there's an impact on the local taxpayer for that. We're talking revenues here, expected, but there's expense too. There's the expense for paying to the bank the principal and interest on the program.
Yeah, I understand that, but we already made that decision 2 years ago that we were going to spend that money.
Yes.
And it's thrown into this year's budget as if it's part of our decision process again this year.
Well, that's...
And it's showing a $600,000 increase according to what I see up there. And we've already said we wanted to spend that, so...
Well, what that comes down to is, that's what's called a contingent item in a budget. In other words, that's a financial requirement, a responsibility that we have accepted as a school district to pay that principal and interest, and that's part of the budget. That must be shown in the budget. Yep, that's an obligation, a legal obligation, and a financial obligation that we have accepted through voter approval, so that we could do this work, and that's why it's in the budget. It's an interesting point that you bring up. I know what you're saying.
Okay.
Okay. Now, federal sources. Public law, PL 874 we call it, and this has to do with the fact that we have federal installations along the border, and that has an impact on our school system. And so over the years there has been some aid available to the school district in consideration of that fact. Now, 15 years ago we were receiving almost $30,000 a year in this program. In the last few years it's amounted to $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000, and the estimate for next year is no funding for that program. So that's what we're showing in the estimated revenues for next year.
Have they stopped the program?
Well, no, the program is in place, but the requirements to participate in the program have changed. So we no longer have enough students to qualify for the program.
Okay.
Now, what happens sometimes later in the school year is they'll come back to us and say, well, we might be able to do a little something for you, so we fill out another set of documents for them, send them in, and maybe we'd get $500 or $1,000, but they have indicated to us that the requirements have changed and that there would be no funding available for us next year. So that's what we're reflecting in the proposed budget.
At any rate, it's a drop in the bucket. But federal sources, this is something that has a district like Peru, which had all these air base folks. This is something to be drastic in their budget.
Very drastic. There was $1 million coming into the district or more from that program,
From
so
feds.
that has a tremendous impact on that district. Yeah. So the total revenues amount to $8,947,732, up from $8,285,599 the current year. And then on the next line, and we talked about this earlier, the fund balance, we projected $683,000 for 94.5, and the estimate right now is about $400,000 for 95.6. Now keep in mind, when this document was put together, it was 30 days ago. Our most recent estimate is approximates the $400,000. This could change at the end of the school year, up or down, depending on expenses during the month of June. So it is an estimate, but we think it's a pretty close estimate for next year. If we found ourselves in the good position of having an extra $100,000 or $150,000, this could help to lower the tax rates a little bit for next year. But we're trying to look at it as accurately and realistically as we can.
Well, the fund balance, you must have a target that you want to, because you need that fund balance to operate in the summer. You wouldn't want a $50,000 fund balance, so there must be some figure in there that you figure, that cushion that you have to have. What would be the lowest fund balance that you would find acceptable at the end of the year?
Well, this is a little lower than what we find acceptable right here.
400,000?
Yes, and I'll tell you why it's a little lower. Around $680,000 to $700,000 would be minimum. It's because it's by the time we purchase textbooks and supplies for the fall and so forth, when the end of August comes, it's a close call. The reason it's estimated right now to be $400,000 has to do with, recall the closing of the facilities planning office as a part of this is the office down in Albany where they review the plans and specifications for the reconstruction program?
Yep.
Okay. Not being able to get some of the projects out in a timely fashion does not allow us to submit certain forms to the state for aid back. This is one of the complications with the late state budget. Follow me on that?
Yep.
So, therefore, the aid will not come back in as timely a fashion as we'd like, therefore, a lower fund balance. So, the aid will come, it's due, but it will come at a later date, and therefore, if it's not going to be here by June 30th, I certainly can't show it in the fund balance.
You can't.
But I'm planning on it coming at a later date. You can't, I'm dealing with dollars that I know will be in the account at the end of June, not something that might show up in October or November. That would be reflected in next year's fund balance when it actually comes through the door.
Okay, so even though it's owed to you, so to speak, you can't show it.
I wouldn't show it in there because it's not here in present. But we are keeping an eye on it. We know that it'll be due at a later date, and then we'll reflect it in a fund balance at a later time.
So assuming that it did come in a timely and correct manner, I would assume that when you make a budget, you're anticipating that June 30th you're going to have X number of left in there as a fund balance. How close were you?
Very close. Very close. We were expecting about $300,000 additional dollars from the reconstruction program. So that would put us up around $700,000, which is close to $683 for the current year. Very close.
So,
yeah,
right about where we should be.
Yes.
So we didn't spend $283,000 more than we thought we were going to.
Just hasn't arrived.
Yeah.
And it may not arrive for some time. We just don't know.
Okay.
Yep. So the current budget of $13,451,544, as you see, increases to $14,224,030. You notice just above on that line which shows tax levy, the tax levy increased by $385,853. And so that's where we get into the 5.8% Moores and 5.6% Moores, the 5.8% in Altona, 6.9% in Champlain and Chazy. Estimate of increase taxes for next year.
As a voter, it's a figure you probably don't have sitting in your back pocket somewhere, but it'd be interesting to me to know what our increase would be without the renovations project, which, as I said, we've already voted on a couple of years ago. Is much of this increase because of the renovations project, or are we spending roughly the same on the renovations project as we did a year ago?
Well, on the renovations program?
Yes.
The renovations program, the expenditures are increasing as we phase in the total $11.6 million, okay? If you took the renovations program out, the increase is quite small, really, if you think about it. Because as far as expenditure side, we're looking at $340,000 in principal, and then in the interest side, just looking for the exact number here, that's $576,110. So you've got about $900,000 of increased expense. Back on page 14 here, attributable to the reconstruction program. Okay. On one hand, you can review the increases for spending. It's the debt service on the reconstruction program. It's the increases for staffing because of a larger enrollment. It's the ordinary cost of operation, which we've held to a bare minimum this year. Almost no increase there, except for the agreed upon salary adjustments for the staff. That's about it. That's about it, really. But you really, it's not quite as simple as that, because you have your increase in your expenses, but then you have the adjustments in the revenues, up higher or lower depending on the situation. For example, no increase in state aid. That's a variable that impacts taxes, obviously. Anything that is not paid for through state aid at the state level is, let's say, it's reassigned to the local taxpayer, assuming that you operate a program similar to the previous year.
Any other overheads to put up there?
I think that's pretty much the end of the overheads. The resolutions we've talked about, did you want to recap on those, Calvin, or do you think we've covered those well enough? This would be the library resolution, the resolution relating to personal registration, where if approved by the voters of the district, people who wish to register to vote can come into the district office any school day and register to do so.
I think we've covered those. I think the important thing again is the date of the hearing, which is June 13th.
Yes, in the Francis Bud Morris Senior High School auditorium, 7:30 p.m.
And the budget vote, June 14th.
That's right, 2 locations from 12 noon until 9 p.m. Moore's Elementary Gymnasium on the western end of the district, junior high cafeteria, eastern end of the district. Anybody in the meantime, Calvin, has any question about the school budget, and I do get questions from time to time. People will call me on the phone and ask me about one issue or another. We're more than happy if they'll call the office. We'll do our very best to give them the answers to the questions that they have, and I'd be very pleased to do so, and feel that often this is a good way to answer a question that's on a taxpayer's mind or resident's mind. Happy to do so.
Okay. We want to thank Mr. Chris DeGrampy, Superintendent of Schools at Northeastern Clinton, for taking time to go over the school budget with us. And if you have any questions, please call and show up at that public hearing.
All right, and participate in the vote on the 14th of June. I'd like to thank Sheila Miller for her help this afternoon, and to you, Calvin, we want to thank you for investing 2 hours of your time this afternoon to help us get the word out regarding the proposed school budget. We appreciate it very, very much.
That's why Hometown Cable's here.
Thank you.